There's a phenomenon that appears sometimes when traveling through hyperspace called hyperspace storm. It's difficult to explain what it is, or even what hyperspace itself is, now that most of old knowledge was lost, but it can be best described as highly unstable vortex of devastating, chaotic powers that spells trouble for whoever finds themselves inside it. These storms are vicious. They're often a cause of death of many inexperienced crews by blowing them far off course, while at the same time damaging their ships and messing with their systems. A ship caught one of them may suffer a multitude of problems. Artificial gravity may start malfunctioning, sensors may go high-wire, reactors may suddenly decide to turn itself off, cargo may suddenly disappear in a microsingularity that appears in a ship for a millisecond, but while those issues are usually quite random, one is almost guaranteed. A sudden, unexpected boost of speed as the storm crashes into the fleet, sending all vessels hurtling forward and straining their structural integrity. Long story short, these storms are hated by everyone. Well, almost everyone.
Whee! Finally some speed. Come on guys, come up here and join me.
Caitlin giggled like a little kid. She was floating in the air, comfortable like fish in the water, spinning head over heels and grinning at her crewmates who, at the same time, were very busy desperately trying to keep contents of their stomachs inside. Technically speaking, it was dangerous as hell for Caitlin to just float there without any support, but no one really was in the mood to tell her otherwise. Dexius, as her adoptive dad, was probably the one who should be bringing her down, but he decided to not do anything for multiple reasons. One, Caitlin probably would not listen to him anyway. Not out of any malice or teenage rebellion, she was simply too absorbed in her own head while she was having fun, and she would simply not notice someone was talking to her. Two, she was clearly having a lot of fun there, and stopping her felt like kicking a small, excitable puppy. Kate was probably the only person that not only wasn't affected by the storms but actively enjoyed them, and as Dexius and the rest of the crew quietly agreed, Caitlin could use some fun every now and then, since she was, technically speaking, still underage. And three, Dex couldn't even dream of bringing Kate down, because he had to use all his skills to keep the ship from either falling apart or from blasting off course. Since other ships in their small fleet were all linked up to him, it would mean that they could all get stranded somewhere far away from civilization, but fortunately, Edge AVA fleet was composed of small and mostly maneuverable vessels, and so trying to get them to behave in that storm, while unpleasant, wasn't impossible, and a day later they all emerged out of the anomaly, only slightly worse for wear, although the same couldn't be said about their crews, who had a lot of cleaning up to do. But as it happened, that storm was actually beneficial, for it spat the fleet out very close to its intended destination, the Alpha Archiman system where, apparently, an old domain probe was orbiting one of the jump points. And it was that probe that both Sindrian's and Royland's friend wished to extract data from, so as soon as piles of vomit were cleaned up and spaced, Dexius ordered everyone to jump into nearest gravity well, hoping that they could find the probe right away, and then get back as soon as possible, for, as was mentioned, pretty much everyone in their fleet felt uneasy while being so far away from noise and din of civilization. Unfortunately, though, things were about to become a lot more interesting. First and foremost, Dex and his crew suspected that pirates led by Royland's former comrade might be lurking around, and so they jumped into the gravity well with their engines working at minimal power to avoid detection. But as they emerged in the system, they were welcomed not by an ambush, but by a complete dead silence. Said silence did not last long though, for mere seconds later comms erupted with panicked voice.
"Something hit us. Something big,"
Andre shouted.
"Aliens? Pirates? We're being boarded. We're going to die. Help!"
Dexius could only sigh at that.
Noobs,"
he muttered to himself, but then, since he wanted to avoid panicked Andre to accidentally ram him with his ship, he opened the comms and said,
"Calm down, it's not pirates. Just take a deep breath and do a sensor sweep. It's just some space debris floating around."
He was right. The jump point was surrounded by floating bits of metal that left little for the imagination. Those chunks were shipwrecks that somehow got blown apart, and judging by the sheer amount of said debris, whatever destroyed them was either extremely strong or extremely numerous. But most importantly, several wreckages floating around looked like they were recent, and amongst them were broken hulls of several old Russia-class frigates.
Well, looks like we found your friends, Royland.
Yekaterina said, trying to clean up the signal, hoping to find some clue as to what happened to these vessels. Royland simply stared at the sensor console, confused and taken aback, unsure what happened to his friend. So, of course, Amber couldn't resist and said,
"At least this time, your contacts are dead before they wanted to kill us."
I see this as an absolute win.
Istvan added compassionately over the comms. But before Royland could snap back at them, things became even more interesting. A new signal suddenly appeared in the debris field and RJVA fleet was pinged by a comm system so ancient they could not believe their own eyes when they saw it, for it was one belonging to Old Human Domain, political body that united humanity and dominated the galaxy before Gates collapsed. Everyone just stared at each other in confusion, unsure how to proceed, but then, without waiting to be accepted, the signal hacked its way into the comm system. "Greetings, unidentified ships," a computer voice said. "We regret to inform you that you ventured into off-limits territory under control of Terran Ministry of Exploration. If you have credentials that allow you to be in this area, please provide them right away. If not, turn around and leave within the next 30 seconds. 29, 28, 27. All this was unexpected enough that everyone just sat there confused, except for Dexius, whose fight-or-flight instincts kicked in almost immediately. Or, to be more precise, in his case they were make-money or flight instincts. He did not just spend 5 days flying through dark space to turn around and leave empty-handed, and so he tried to interrupt the countdown and negotiate.
Look there, friend, we do have the right credentials, right? But we left him in another ship. It's all fine, though. We won't mess with your mission.
He started, looking for correct line of approach.
We'll be in and out. Hour 2 max, no fuss.
The mysterious caller responded in silence, which gave Royland a chance to figure out what Dex was trying to do and pitch in as well.
Aye, but we're here to do some cleanup duty. All those wrecked ships no doubt caused a lot of interference, right? So we're here to clean them up a bit, make sure they don't interfere with the domain orders,
he said, trying to sound convincing. In response, there was only odd electric noise, and after a few moments, the computer voice said, "This is acceptable. Please move to position Z-23 and proceed with salvaging Protocol Gamma." Back in RJVA ships, everyone stared at each other in confusion, but then Dexius, very carefully, touched the controls and moved his ship forward. "Error," the computer voice said. "Your license appears to be out of date. Error. Your ships do not conform to Domain Salvaging Standard 0034. The punishment for not following Bureaucratic protocol is 10 years of hard labor. Error. No domain enforcement detected in the area. Frontier Justice Protocol engaged. Eliminating nonconformists." And with that, all hell broke loose. Suddenly, the debris field sprang to life and 4 objects, similar in size to RJVA ships, rushed towards our heroes, their weapons already powering on the way. Dexius tried to say something else to salvage the situation, but the comm channel shut itself down.
"This is impossible. These are domain probes. They must have been here for centuries,"
Caitlin said, looking spellbound at the sensor console.
Yes, and right now they're trying to kill us. We can take a look at them later, but for now I need everyone on combat stations.
Dexius replied, breaking Kate from her amazed gaze.
On it! Dex, tell Hicks keep her distance. We can't afford to lose a tanker so far from home.
Royland said, already running towards ion cannon mounted at the front of the ship. Fortunately, Captain Hicks was already burning away at full speed, but that also meant that machine guns mounted on her tanker could not be brought to bear against rapidly approaching drones. This, much to everyone's dismay, was to be a fair 4v4 fight, and moments later alerts aboard all ships started blaring as first enemy rounds struck their shields.
Finally a chance to show some proper piloting,
Dexius said, his eyes glowing with anticipation.
Let me show you how it's done.
Unfortunately, his spirits were dampened a bit about a minute later when Dicey suddenly shook violently. Lights went out and Yekaterina said,
They overloaded our shields. Reactor went into overdrive and now we have to reboot it. Oh no, we're sitting ducks here.
Why yes, because our gun has missed every single goddamn shot.
Dexius replied angrily.
"Hey, we missed because you keep shaking the ship,"
Caitlin said from her post.
"Besides, it's been ages since we actually used these guns. They have to be calibrated before fighting."
Hey, whose job is that, Kate?
Royland asked.
It would work if you did your damn chores every now and fucking then.
Guys, I left my Geiger counter back in the reactor room.
Istvan said from another ship.
I connected to it and it says it's dead zone there.
Damn it! Amber, go there and reboot it manually!
Dexius ordered. Unfortunately, he picked a self-proclaimed noble to boss around, which of course meant another argument was about to happen.
I'm not taking orders from you.
Amber said, offended.
If your child can't do her job properly, you should discipline her more.
Both Kate and Dex wanted to say something, but their incoming tirade was stopped before it even begun, by a flurry of high-velocity rounds that pierced Dicey's armor and torn through interior of the ship. For a moment, everything was silent, because hull breaches meant the bridge was now depressurized, but soon one comm erupted with angry voice.
Oh, Dexius, that's the 5th leg I've lost because of you. The goddamn 5th. I'm already in debt to 3 prosthetic companies, and now I have to pay for yet another bloody cursed leg.
Yekaterina shouted. Indeed, what little remained of her leg was now floating in the air next to her post, but fortunately for her she wasn't in much pain, because, as was said, she already lost that particular leg twice. At this point, after a few years of their adventures, most of Dicey's crew was built more out of metal than out of flesh. A lost arm here, another leg there. Royland even had a metallic spine at this point, serving as an eternal reminder of his passionate romance after the revolution. But of course, that did not mean our heroes were used to losing limbs, and they most certainly did not enjoy it.
The hell you mean because of me? If you were doing your job, you would have hacked those drones already and we would have had this problem in the first place.
Dexius replied to Yekaterina.
And if you were flying properly, instead of just charging right at these drones, we wouldn't have lost our shields.
Guys, stop it.
Caitlin said. You'd think she wanted to stop the bickering, but she actually had a different idea in mind.
Remember, every limb we lose brings us closer to becoming cool robots. Flesh is weak anyway.
A flurry of "shut up, Caitlin" from every other comm forced her to go back to her post, and not a moment too soon because the drone that disabled them was just turning around for another attack.
God damn it, what is it with this gun?
Royland asked the uncaring void.
I recalibrated, even now it can't hit shit.
I told you we should have bought that torpedo launcher.
Amber said, almost prompting Dexius into another rant about saving money. Instead, he took a deep breath and decided to encourage the crew.
Don't worry, guys. It's all part of the plan. We got this drone right where we want it.
Dexius said, lying.
Oh god, we're dead. We're so dead.
Yekaterina whimpered. But in that moment, just as Ancient Drone was revving up its gun to turn Daisy into a floating piece of scrap metal, a beam of light suddenly appeared in viewports, and the uncaring enemy exploded in a blinding flash. Alas, my friends, Commander Yezhov said from his gunboat diplomat, "'tis not yet time to venture into the great unknown. Obligations were made and must be kept." "Which means you don't get to die until we get paid," Dudley added from Gargoyle. "And let me tell you, these damn toasters scarred my beauty something fierce, so we have to patch her up, and it ain't gonna be cheap to repair such a magnificent ship." Then, as if to punctuate his words, Gargoyle fired its massive spike gun, instantly turning one of the drones into a rapidly expanding cloud of space debris. "Did you see that? Did you see?" Dudley hollered into the comms. "Be amazed by the power of my beautiful ship."
We are, believe me.
Caitlin said, surprised by how devastating that oversized space ballista was.
But it would be a bit more useful if we could fire it more than every half hour.
Not to be rude, but one of your engines fell off when you fired it.
Andre said from his ship. "Bah, it was cramping my style anyway." And that was pretty much it. While Dicey and her crew were busy failing to do any noticeable damage to their enemies and then preparing for inevitable death, the rest of their fleet mopped up all opposition just in time to save their unlucky employers, although Dexius was already spinning a completely different tale to his friends.
Don't you dare say anything.
He started, noticing that everyone was angrily looking at him.
We got banged up a bit, true, but we're okay. Well, mostly okay. But we had to show our employees out that we are not afraid to get stuck in and we're willing to take the heat off them, so next time they can do the same for us.
Okay, sure.
Royland said, shaking his head.
First and foremost, you're full of shit. And second...
What? You mean you put us in danger and got my bloody leg blown off because you wanted to impress those guys we barely know?
Yekaterina asked, her face red with anger.
No, Yekaterina, he did no such thing.
Caitlin said, tired of constant arguments.
Dex is just not a combat pilot, so he had no idea what he was doing. Which, as it happened, allowed the rest of our ship to take down everything else. So let's just stop arguing for a moment and see if that probe we're looking for is around somewhere. These drones had to be protecting something, right?
Unfortunately, while Kate's idea was correct, this particular debris field was devoid of any probes, but it was instead full of damaged ships and even more drones, now broken beyond any repair.
Well, at least we know what happened to Eleanor.
Royland said, after scanning all of the broken Lasher frigates drifting through the void.
Fuck, she deserved better than to end up here. So far the fuck away from home.
Dexius wanted to say something about Roy's old contact mostly trying to kill him, but one look at Large Revolutionary's face made him stay quiet.
At least she helped us, in a way.
Caitlin said, already sifting through some of the wreckage brought on board by salvage teams.
You can tell there are a lot more of these drones around here before. She and her fleet must have ran right into them like we did. And it looks like they almost managed to win too. Only these 4 that jumped us were left.
We could look for a body. She's probably drifting somewhere out there.
Royland said solemnly.
We can do it later.
Dexius responded.
We'll drop a probe here so we can find this place again. But right now we need to finish salvaging what we can and find that probe as soon as possible. The sooner we get back to civilization, the better.
And so onwards they went, looking for their prize, and in the process our crew met several other ancient domain probes. Fortunately, as Dexius said, after seeing their boss almost getting blown up to pieces in their first encounter, other RJVA crews took point in those engagements, making them a lot easier and much less stressful, although Yekaterina kept complaining all the time about her missing leg, forced to move around on a hastily cobbled together prosthesis that made her walk like a drunken pirate. But all those complaints and on-board arguments were silenced after one of those encounters. Dicey's crew was salvaging yet another floating pile of scrap when a ping on the sensor suddenly made them realize that a domain probe was just right next to them. It wasn't the one they were looking for, unfortunately, but it did not matter, for after scanning contents of its data drive, everyone just gathered in front of the screen, their mouths open in spellbound confusion.
Do you people see what I see?
Dexius asked, unable to believe his own luck.
A habitable world.
Yekaterina said.
In fact, it's not even populated. Right in the next system. It's a miracle no one found it for so long.
Can you imagine what we could do with this? If it's actually habitable, we could finally make a place free of all those goddamn politicians and corporations in the core sector.
Royland dreamed.
Yes, I could establish my kingdom there.
Amber added.
Or we could sell this location to the highest bidder and swimming credits for the rest of our lives.
Dexius said, unaware of cold glares this comment at him.
Hey guys, what's the commotion about?
Caitlin said, walking into the bridge. She was still wearing vac suits she used to run salvage operations and was holding something at her side.
We just found something that could set us up for life.
Dexius said with a big smile on his face.
And you? You seem to be excited about something.
Oh, yes, here. I found this thing floating in space. Can we keep it?
She said, raising up the object in her hands. It was a small circular monitor with a handful of cables connecting it to a miniaturized power source. It took everyone exactly 1 second to figure out what it was.
Oh no.
Royland said, taking a step back.
It's just,
Why, hello there, Fleshbag. I mean friends, a voice said from the small screen. I'm so happy you picked me up. Drifting around in the void is not exactly the most pleasant or interesting thing to do. So now AIs were involved. Great. I think not even Dexius' self-delusion is going to get our intrepid crew out of this mess, but who knows, maybe, just maybe, they'll get lucky. Only time will tell.